also concludes the centers.
We did it.
Yes. These are just the centers without even really going through the inner authorities too much.
I think we can hop through those and probably go through a more in-depth episode of those. But I think bringing those into the end of this episode and just wrapping them up really quick, I think could be really insightful for our listeners. What do you think, guys? 15 more minutes? Let's do it.
Okay, just a very short run through, because we could have an episode for each inner authority in themselves.
We will. Don't worry, guys. We will.
So the one that overpowers them all, the one that rules them all, is the emotional solar plexus. And when that is defined, you're automatically an emotional inner authority. And that automatically means that you need time to make decisions, especially the big ones. This is not about what do you want to eat for lunch if someone is asking you at noon. It's really about big decisions. Hey, where do you want to move? What job do you want to take on? Which partner do you want to be with? So that is what you need. You need to at least sleep over it. If not, take a few days, a few weeks. It can even take a few months. However, that's kind of what you need to do. You need to wait for clarity, because the inner authority, it feels up and down and all around, and depending also on which wave you are in, so the tribal, individual, or collective wave. These are the three waves that you can be defined with when it comes to the inner authority. And depending on which one is defined in your chart, you're going to feel your emotions being very up and down, very fast, or it starts to rise slowly, or like your father is experiencing the high of highs and the low of the lows, and then usually he's pretty mellow, like he's pretty mellow most of the time, but then he has these highs and he has these lows. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely one thing that he must be experiencing.
Yeah.
This is a little bit about the emotional authority. Would you like to add anything to that?
No, that was beautiful. Keep going.
Would you like to take over the sacral?
Sure. So if your emotions are not defined, then it just goes to the next one, which is the sacral authority, right? So this is a gut feeling. Yes, it's going to feel like an immediate hell yes in your gut, or an immediate hell no in your gut. And this corresponds pretty directly with responding to something, right? So this is going to be for manifesting generators and generators, the two sacral beings in this world. If you're not an emotional authority of either of those, you'll probably be a sacral. We'll go through some of the other ones. But I'm pretty sure for manifesting generators and generators, you can only be one of those two, right? Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. Math, process of elimination. That's accurate. So, yeah. So the way I like to define it the best, again, I've never experienced what a gut feeling feels like, but I've seen my husband do it and he's great at it. So what I see is he'll just be like, yeah, no, that doesn't feel right. Or yeah, no, that feels right. And it's pretty immediate. And again, similarly to the emotional authority, right? It can be used for big decisions and you can decide that in the moment, or it can be used for like dinner, like quite the opposite, right? Like you want pizza or Chinese food, this or that. And I find that when I give him two different choices, like as a sacral being, this or that, yes or no, that helps a lot in the decision making rather than leaving an open-ended question like, what do you want for dinner, babes? And then never getting a response because homeboy doesn't know what he wants for dinner. But if I give him two choices, stir fry or fried rice, boom, he'll choose one of them. So if you have a sacral person in your life, or rather, even if you're a sacral authority, giving yourself this or that, yes or no, or feeling into the decision and saying yes or no to it, like whatever your immediate response is going to be the right response for you in that moment. It's such a cool way to make decisions.
Yeah. I mean, it's also something that is being conditioned into us. The gut instinct. Everyone talks about the gut instinct. There was a book that I saw the other day on Audible, and I listened to it as well, and it was really interesting. I don't remember the title, but he was saying how the gut instinct isn't correct necessarily, because he was giving some mathematical things that you were supposed to calculate and equations that you were supposed to calculate, and you were supposed to also use your gut instinct. And I think it's okay to have scientific studies on this. I mean, this was a book based on scientific studies, and I think it's great to do that as well. However, you have no idea how deconditioned this individual is, how really in tune with their instincts this individual is. So until we can really prove that this or that person really is in tune with their intuition, it's going to be very hard to prove that an instinct or an intuition does or doesn't work. And the pure sacral inner authority to me is also one that I feel is, at least in their decision-making process, less conditioned than probably other inner authorities, because people just always talk about listen to your gut, follow your gut. Yeah.
I feel like it's either listen to your gut or follow your heart. The follow your heart really resonates. I feel that one, but yeah, it's just very interesting. Yeah, it's just very interesting to have been told growing up, just listen to your gut, dude. My gut's not telling me anything. It's telling me I'm hungry. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, and the heart is often, people then are telling you, oh, but your heart can't make the right decisions. Like, let your brain make the decisions.
No.
Which is also a good point here right now, because the brain never makes decisions. Even if you're a mental inner authority, you're not using your mind to make decisions. So that's a very important thing to remember here. No matter what inner authority you have, the mind never makes the decisions. The mind is great at processing things and creating presentations and statistics and things like that, but it's not there to make decisions. So then let's get to the next inner authority, which is the spleen, the splenic inner authority. That is really about using your intuition. And the challenging thing about the spleen is, so interestingly, if your sacral is connected to your spleen, you're going to have elements of this as well. So you're going to feel this quick insights as well. It's still, your inner authority is not going to change. It's still going to be your sacral. However, if your emotional solar plexus and your sacral are not defined, then and your spleen is defined, then you're a splenic inner authority. And the splenic inner authority makes it's an instinct that is very, very fast. Number one. Number two, it doesn't repeat itself. And number three, it's super quiet. So it's difficult to hear it or feel it. A lot of times it's like a poke or a sensation, but it's very, very quiet. And it also depends on the rest of your chart. Maybe you have a flash of imagery, maybe you hear something, maybe you feel it on your skin. So all of these can be still different for your splenic intuition. But it's a very fast, immediate response. So when you first meet someone and your spleen is telling you, hell no, stay away from that person, stay away from that person. Yeah. Don't have your mind convince you that, oh yeah, but they have good qualities here and good qualities there, and that's not that bad. No.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I've other than the one person that I mentioned earlier with a splenic authority, I think he might be the only person in my life that I know who has it. And I would love to know what it feels like for him. Because when I meet people with a defined spleen, I'm like, okay, it'll feel like it's somewhere on or in your body, but it's really hard to define where they're going to feel or how they're going to feel that intuitive tap, right? I would love to know what it feels like for, if you guys are out there and you happen to be really in tune with your splenic authority, let us know on the gram about what that feels like. Leave us a voice message if you feel so inclined, but I would love to know like where you feel the intuitive taps within your body.
Yeah, me too. So yeah, this spleen is to me also a very interesting one. I don't know why, but I keep attracting splenic clients. So usually splenic projectors, but also splenic manifestors. It's usually a very heavy conditioned inner authority.
Yeah.
So trust in your split-second intuition, but also learn to understand and hear it first. That's very important. So don't just act on it from the get-go, but just start to tune into it more. The next one is our ego, inner authority. Please share with us what you feel about this one.
Yeah, so I've said it a million times now, thrice, not a million, thrice. So what a hell yes feels like when you feel it, it's this beautiful heart pull that it just feels like your heart is radiating out of your chest when a decision is for you. If you don't feel that, then that decision is not for you. And I find that this doesn't happen with small things like, what are we eating for dinner, right? This is with big life decisions, or if I'm doing a card pull from a deck. Actually, I think the first time I really, really felt it was when you and I were together, like physically in the same space for the first time. So when we were in Italy in 2022, oh my God, was that over a year ago? Ugh, that's crazy. Oh my God. Yeah, when we were in Italy in 2022, I just felt like that was the first retreat that we hosted together. And that whole week, I just felt so aligned. Oh my God, you just gave me a thumbs up. Thanks, boo-boo. Let me see if I can get the heart one going. I don't know if it does it on my computer or not. I think it's only on my phone. What a bummer. Yay! That's how I know you got a new computer in the update. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you'll know what we're saying or talking about. But I think the first time I felt a heart pull was when you and I were physically together for the first time. And like, not in like that kind of way, but like just we met for the first time. And I couldn't fall asleep the first night that like we were like in the same room. I just had like the biggest heart pull that being there was the most aligned decision that I could have made in that time. And I wholeheartedly believe that it was not only right place, right time, but like divine heart pull timing into that. So again, with an ego authority, right? Like I don't always feel a heart pull to things, but I do feel a heart pull to things that I know are going to be life-changing for me. What about you?
I sometimes feel it on everyday decisions as well. Like sometimes I feel like, okay, I really want to eat that, but that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
I think for me it's also for big things, and it's when I then set my heart onto something, nothing can shake it. So this is really, that way, or there is no other path. I think it's also connected to the transformation channel that is connected to myself.
Yeah.
So to my G center, to my self center. So it's really about also making shocking decisions or transformative decisions. And that I feel like once I've made a decision that this is the way I want to go, there is no way to talk me out of it.
That's interesting because I only have the channel to my throat, and I didn't actually elaborate on this much earlier, but I think in this, so there we go. The channel from my ego center to my throat is half defined, or half, not defined.
Conscious.
The word. Thank you. Half conscious and unconscious. Sorry guys, it's going on almost 2 a.m. my time. My brain is not firing as rapidly as it should be. But going on, half conscious, half unconscious. I often feel more like a reflector than I do a manifester, I think. So not to say that I don't have heart pulls, but it's very infrequently that I do have a heart pull on something. And I think in part it's because the one channel that I have, I don't always have consistent access to. So it's really interesting to feel a heart pull when I do, because that means that it is so aligned and it is so for me that I need to follow through with it. And I feel so good when I do. And if I don't and I ignore it, it just feels like, I don't feel like constipation's the right word, but it feels like having a frog. Yeah, like having a frog in your throat and not doing anything about it, like not coughing it out. That's what it feels like.
I like that analogy, especially for you as a manifester.
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Next, we have the self-projected inner authority. So as you can tell, it's only in projectors. And the self-projected inner authority is about making the decisions within the right environment as well. So even though this is defined, it is very, very important that you have a sounding board. So you need someone, preferably, to be a sounding board. If you don't have someone, you can also just talk to yourself. That is not a problem. However, it's really about talking it out, because if you're a self-projected individual, then the only way that you're connected to this center, or that this is defined and this is your inner authority, is through it being connected to your throat. And that means you really need to talk things through. So for you, it's really about talking things through, and you will find clarity, especially in your voice. Your voice will change. So if you have someone that is very close to you, they will hear it. They will hear the right decision in your voice, and you can also learn to hear it in your own voice. So for you, you need a sounding board and talk things through. Just choose the person wisely. It also, depending on their own design, they can also influence you. So choose the person wisely that you talk to.
I know a dietitian, because those are the people that I work with, who is a self-projected projector. And oftentimes me and 2 other RDs, dietitians, will host just a space for people to vent, to come together, to have community virtually and connect. And when she's having a rough day, she'll just come in, talk for 30 minutes of the hour session, be like, "You feel better now, boo-boo?" She's like, "Yeah, I just needed to talk it through." I'm like, "That's literally what you needed to do. You just needed to talk it through."
Absolutely. And they don't need to hear anything back. They just need to be the one venting, as you said. They just need to get it out. They need to hear themselves say it. They don't need anyone telling them, okay, this is what you should do. They don't need anyone giving advice. They just need a sounding board.
Yeah. And the occasional me popping in being like, "So knowing your human design," and then
exactly
trailing off into something.
Yeah, very good. Perfect.
So fun.
The next one that we're going to be talking about, I don't have a visual representation of that, but it would be this, your ajna and your head basically defined. You could have the throat defined as well, but sometimes it's just your ajna and your head that's defined. And that makes you a mental projector. And that means that the environment becomes super important. So with the self-projected projector, what I meant by environment, it's more about social surrounding. It's not environment. So you need to have the right people or the right person for you around you that you can use as a sounding board. With a mental projector, you really need to also be in the right place. So when you're making a decision, make sure that you're physically in that space if you can. So for example, if you want to choose a workspace, go visit the workspace, feel into the workspace, see how it feels like to you. If you have an apartment that you want to move into, visit the apartment. Don't just do it online. If you have a country you want to move to, go to the country and feel into the country. You really need to be physically on site to make a decision. And if you want to make just a general decision, make sure that you feel safe and comfortable in the environment that you're in. What I like to recommend to self-projected projectors is that, to mental projectors, is to go into the forest and also have someone to use as your sounding board, or into nature in general. It doesn't have to be the forest, it can also be the beach, but just try to seclude yourself from anyone around you because you're so open in your chart. And to make a decision, it's really best to be by yourself preferably, and to talk to yourself. You will also hear it in your voice, especially if your throat is defined. But you can also have another person that you really trust be your sounding board. Just avoid having too many people around you in whichever environment you are.
I think I know one mental projector, but I don't know them well enough to give any insights here. So, beautiful. Thanks, Miko.
Okay, then we have one last one. That is the lunar authority. So the lunar authority is the reflector. It's very, very rare. And actually, I wanted to put them on first place for once because they're often being mentioned last. So I'm sorry for having switched it up again. Wasn't planned that we talk about inner authorities today. But here we go. The reflector, the lunar authority. And this is very interesting because it's all about the lunar cycle. So you're going to really need time to make decisions, minimum 1 month, because you need to go through all the gates, the moon needs to go through all the gates for you to understand what a decision feels like. So if you have an important decision coming up, give yourself at least 1 month, if not several months. So it can really take quite a while to make the right decision for you. And I would highly recommend getting a human design reading done for you, because you need to understand your own personal lunar cycle and how that feels to you. Because when the moon is going through your chart, it will define different areas in your chart. So sometimes you will have defined centers, and you can just understand these energies much better. It's kind of like tracking your period, where it's at the beginning, you're doing this whole thing with measuring your cervix and the slime and the temperature and all of that. And eventually you will just get it. You will just understand the symptoms of your body, when you're safe, when you're not safe, when you're, or if you want to be pregnant, it's the other way around. But basically with a reflector, it's really about understanding your personal lunar cycle so that you can understand what is going on inside of you to make these decisions.
I know one reflector, also a dietitian, just throwing that out there. But she left her job in a hospital because of the toxic environment, and then became a freelancer and takes a month off every year like steps away from her business and her freelancing and just like lives, just like does her life, and like also has a podcast, very interesting, but does it cyclically, right? Like she's not always on, and she's not always on socials. So she's very much, I don't think she's ever had a reading, but she's very much in tune with what didn't work in that hospital environment and creating her own dynamic that does work for her, working from home, still having connections to the community. And I don't remember what her profile was. I don't know if I ever had that information, to be honest, but it's really cool to see a reflector thriving. Y'all, 1% of you out there. Yes. So it's really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're here to reflect back at us what works and what doesn't work. So if you have a reflector around you and they don't look particularly healthy or happy, then something needs to change, really, desperately. And they're really good at guiding people. It's cool. Okay, then we've come to the end. Thank you so much and have a beautiful rest of your week.
Yeah. Ciao, guys.